Hello, it's Melinda from Alexis and Melinda's Art Space, and today we've got an art journal page. So this is a bit of a different art journal page. It's actually a challenge, and it's called a dot to dot challenge. And I like challenges because it sort of gives me prompts along the way of somewhere to go. And if I want to craft but I really don't know what I want to craft or what I want to do, a challenge is a great way, and it extends your ability. So this is called a dot to dot challenge, and it's done by, I believe her name is Roz. It's in a Facebook group called Australian Art Swap Group. I'll link it below. So each month she comes up with a huge page of prompts. Not a huge page of prompts, but like a recipe for scrapbooking, actually. You'd probably call it a recipe. And then you follow the recipe and put your own interpretation on it. Swap things around if you don't have that particular ingredient, let's call it. So I'm working in my altered wine book, and I actually cover up that beautiful black photo. I've left a lot of those photos in the book with anticipation of doing something with them, but as the pages are running out in the book, I really don't know what to do with them. So that one got covered up. I'm sort of covering up the more boring pictures. I may just leave them. I love working in altered books. Okay, I've just gone to get my heat gun. So we're working around a quote, and I'll read you the quote, and it's actually the quote that goes on the page at the end of it. It says, "When a woman says, 'I have nothing to wear,' what she really means is, 'There's nothing here for whom I'm supposed to be today.'" And that was by Caitlin Moran. So this whole layout is based around that quote. So the first step is black. So we start off with a black background. So you could start off with and interpret that any way you'd like. So I decided black gesso. I've got this tub of black thick gesso that's getting a little old and a bit thick, and I do need to use it up. So black gessoed the page and dried it off with the heat gun. So the green tape is actually a really old roll of washi tape that I bought really cheap. So the next step, step 2, was, excuse me while I had a little drink. My voice is going funny today. So step 2 is use masking tape to do a 1/4 inch border all around your page. I didn't have masking tape handy, but I had this green washi tape, so I decided to use that. And washi tape being low tack tape, it works great like masking tape. Okay, so the third step was black and white collage. I'm just summarizing the recipe, or the dot to dots, because they're quite elaborate. Roz does an awesome job. I'm sure it's Roz. If I've missed your name and calling you Roz and you're not, I do apologize. So this step 3, is all about making a collage of black and white things in the background. So things could be black and white scrapbook paper, which I have some of there, black and white magazine images, which I have used as well. You could do black and white jelly prints, you could do black and white, what else has she got listed here? Black and white anything, basically. You could use wrapping paper, you could use tissue paper, you could use washi tape, you could use whatever you have. So tearing that into squares and rectangles and sort of putting that all over the background. So when you're doing an art journal page, your background gets pushed to the back, so you're not really wanting to, this is not going to be a finished project just with these stuck in. And I'm sort of being careful not to stick them over the washi tape, because I know later on that's going to be a pain to get off. You could stick words, different things, newspaper, you could even use newspaper if you wanted to. So I'm gluing it all down with Mod Podge. It's some paper, Mod Podge paper, and it's gloss. Now I don't particularly like the gloss. It's not my favourite, and I've got 2 jars of it left to go. Ugh. But I'm not a brand snob, I'm a price snob. So they were cheap, they were on clearance at Spotlight, so instead of costing me, well, they originally marked down to $15 on a yellow orange sticker, and Australians would know what I mean by an orange sticker. It's a discount sticker, and then they had 50% off all their orange stickered items. They do that occasionally. So they come down to be about $7.50 a tub, and I believe it's supposed to be around, quote me if I'm wrong, $20 a tub-ish. I paid up to that for it. So the next step was, sorry, just reading this. Next step was using white gesso or You could also put a colour into it as well, to knock back the starkness of the black and white with a bit of white gesso. So I'm using Liquitex white gesso. It's my favourite. Again, that one was on clearance from Spotlight quite a while ago. I tend to buy I love the Liquitex products, but oh my god, they are expensive. So I tend to only buy them on clearance, or when Lincraft, for example, or Spotlight have like a 40% off sale. And I'm trying to use up all my bits and pieces at the moment. So Lincraft tend to have 2 to 3 sales a year that are 40% off. So if you can time it right, I can buy enough jars to sort of tide me over until the next sale, or I go and use some cheaper products. So the next step was, where are we? Step 6, using a white paint pen or a white pen, outline some of the edges, or all of the edges. You can do some of the edges, all of the edges. This is a Posca white paint pen, and it's dying. A lot of my paint pens and that got sort of put into a box and sort of forgotten about, and about 6 months later I pulled them out and go, oh my god, they now don't work. So hence why I'm tapping it up and down, trying to get the paint out and putting a little blob and then moving it with a pen. I think I eventually throw this one out and give up. Is it still on my table? Oh no, it's still on my table. I must be still wanting to work with it. Yes, I can see it in my pot of pens. So the Posca paint pens are great, but I find storing them and not using them for a lengthy period of time, or losing them in your stash, is not a good idea. So that's what I do. I often clean off my craft table into a box because I need to use the table, and the box sort of gets shoved away. Okay, what are we doing now? Oh, okay, next step. Using white paint or other colour, you could bring another colour in. I decided not to. I decided to mainly keep this black and white. It says stencil through a... Put white paint or ink through a stencil. Or any item to put white patterns on it. So this is one of my stencils. I'm not sure whether this one's on the website. I will link it below if it is. And just using some titanium white paint. Scraping it with the spatula was not probably the best idea. But hey, I didn't want to get up and go get my sponge, so the spatula was on the table, so I decided to do it that way. So just drying that off with a heat gun. Some parts of this video I have sped up 4 times, because this did take me several hours to do. I think this whole video will be 30 minutes, and I thank you if you're right at the end and going to sit through me waffling for 30 minutes. So this took me about 2 hours to complete this page, but I absolutely love it. It's possibly one of my all-time favourite pages from the last 6 months. I actually have a video coming up, my top 10 art journal pages for 2017, so that's something to watch out for. Just summarising the year and picking my top 10 or top 11 favourites for the year. So now I grab out my Tim Holtz stamping platform, and I have to do this several times because I am working on a trestle table and it's got too much give in it. I am looking at upgrading my work surface probably towards the end of this year to get 2 chests of drawers and then a flat tabletop or a flat piece of wood, so I don't have to work on a trestle that moves every time I do something. I love the stamping press because you can re-ink your stamps and stamp directly in the same spot again and again to get it darker, and if it doesn't work, and I do have to do that a couple of times sometimes because I am working on the trestle table, and you can see it wobbling when I'm going. So a stamping platform is an awesome investment. There's lots of DIY ones on the internet you can follow. There's lots of different brands. I love this particular one because it's a large one, the Tim Holtz one, and you can put a whole sheet of 12-inch paper in it if you want to stamp all around the edge. It just hangs off the side, but there's nothing to stop from hanging off the side. You can use the clear stamps or you can use the rubber stamps with it as well, which is really cool. So now I've got my faces, so I was using the archival ink you see up in the top right hand corner to do the ink because I knew I was going to watercolour with them. So I grabbed my daughter's watercolours because they had quite a few of the fleshy tones in them. So this is a, if I remember correctly, Semco brand from Spotlight. I bought for my daughter. Just trying to think. Her 6th birthday. She got an art journal kit and that was in it. Oh my god. And she just turned 10. So that's 4 years old. We obviously don't use it that much. Using it a bit more now, but things get lost in our house. I swear there's fairies at night that come into my house and pick things up that I have and move them and hide them. Could be just the 10-year-old. But I swear things go missing all the time or get put into a box and get shoved away and another box gets put on top of it. I'm aiming for my own art room, but yeah, at the moment we craft on a trestle in the very small lounge room, hence why I haven't done tours. I may start doing some tours of storage ideas that I'm coming up with, but all of it's in boxes and it's a mess, so I won't show you my mess. So just colouring in the faces. I did a whole sheet of the faces because I didn't know what I was going to do. So going back to this thingo, we had to get a face. So we could have got a face from a magazine, we could have stamped it like I did, we could have drawn it. I'm getting better at drawing faces. We just had to keep the proportion in mind for our page. So these faces are Jane Devonport stamps, and I love them. Had them for about 12 months, haven't used them much because I didn't really know how to use them. Yeah, they're a face you stamp at new, but I sort of go to do the hair and then it looks like a dog's breakfast, so I thought, right, I'm going to get them out and use the darn things. So I did several different stamps and filled up the whole page, and now I've got a few extras to use on something else. So trying to work on a bit of shadowing. I'm not very good at shadowing with the watercolours, hence the paper's not very good, hence the watercolours are not very good, but you can sort of see I tried a little with the shadowing. The watercolour is only a cardstock from Officeworks in Australia. It's Quill brand, and it's 210 GSM cardstock, so it's a nice heavyweight cardstock, but it's also lightweight as well. These probably would have been done better on watercolour paper, but I didn't have any handy. This is what I had at hand. I tend to craft with a lot of things that I can reach and grab. I will not go digging through things looking for things. Digging through things looking for things. Digging through boxes looking for things. So hence why I'm trying to get my art stash organised and have like things with like. So all my pens in a pot, or my paints, like all my watercolours, and I have several sets of different cheapo watercolours that I've been testing out in the one spot, so I know where they are when I go to get them. I've got several boxes for sort of scrappy paper. That's where I went and got all the black and white bits of paper from, so when I finish a project and I've got small bits, I just throw it in there for my art journal. So trying to do that, but in a small space, it's just difficult. So just drying off the watercolours. I also dry from the back as well, and it helps the page not warp and bend, because it is not the best paper for watercolouring. Okay, now I decide that because I've done the double page, I really didn't think about this before I started. Because in the dot to dot, for example, it said use one, excuse the truck going past, it says use one figure, but one sort of looked a bit lost on my page, so I decided to do a group of 3. The dot to dot is great. It's like, as I said, it's like a recipe for scrapbooking, but if you don't have the particular item or you want to change it to suit yourself, you can swap out products to different things. I put 3 figures instead of 1, but I still did the same concept of what the dot to dot was, if that makes sense. So you've sort of got fruit in there, but you've sort of got a guide. And it's interesting looking at different pages people have put together and different people's interpretations of things. I've seen some other people's work, and some of it is amazing. So now I go and do the hair. It says give your figures a coat of gel medium, which I didn't really do. I'll do that when I stick them down. Stick the heads down in the middle, about ½ an inch from the top of your page. So I decided my figures needed hair. So the first one I grabbed some black and white striped washi tape. Now this thicker roll of washi tape is from Kmart. They have about 4 rolls for I think $4. You only get about 5 meters on the roll, but seriously, I have not used a whole roll of washi tape yet, so the smaller rolls are probably. So the first one, I lined up all the stripes so her hair is going all the one way. So then I decided to do something with this one, and the second one I sort of roughly cut out, and as you can see I don't measure anything, I don't draw anything, I grab my scissors and it's only paper. If I stuff it up, I grab another sheet, especially out of a magazine. So this one I decided to do her hair with the words going across. I wanted a bit of all 3 figures to be different and to have sort of their hair different. different. Oh my god, I can't think today. It's been too hot the last few days. So this next one, I decided I like the black washi tape. I'll do it again, but instead of lining all the lines up and doing it all symmetrical, her hair looks like she's just got out of bed, and it's everywhere. So it's more like curly hair. So I really love how these faces turned out, and I must do more of this with the faces. For some reason it just clicked for me tonight, and their hair looked decent. Sometimes when I go to paint hair on these particular stamps, it just looks like they're got a mop on their head, or a jellyfish stuck to their head with tentacles everywhere. It's, yeah, you don't see any of that. I do put a few of my failures on YouTube, and coming up you'll see one in a minute. But yeah, so I'm wanting to work with these faces more. I'm putting together a off on another tangent, sticking these down with gel medium because they're cardstock and paper. This is Matisse. No, what is it? It's really old actually, this pot of gel medium. It's a thick viscosity, it says on the front, so it's quite thick. So it's good for thicker pieces of cardboard. And as you can see, I put on with the spatula. And I shouldn't have done this. I should have done the dresses or the shirts first. But I wasn't thinking, obviously, this night. So just putting a layer, because they're watercolours on the faces, just scraping a layer over. I find that seals them without putting a bit more liquid on them. Because if I used a liquid matte medium to seal them, then they would become, the colours would run. So drying that up, and you see me rip them up in a minute, because they need dresses, because at the moment they're floating heads. Who has floating heads on the page? Well, if it was a Harry Potter page, you probably would. So I decided to make dresses, because that was one of the next steps. Stick your head on the page. Now tear old book pages from newspaper, from magazines, black text on white background into long strips, and make them a shirt and make them a dress. So basically I decided to make them shirts first. I've grabbed some scrapbook paper. That is actually a printout from the internet that was a bit fuzzy. When my last printer decided it didn't want to print properly anymore, I needed a new one. I had these new ink cartridges in them, so I decided to go on the internet and print out whatever I could just to use up the colours and the black and white. And they, sometimes when you grab something from the internet and go to print it, it doesn't print, it's pixelated, I think that's the word, and it doesn't print crisp and clear because you've taken a small image and blown it up to be A4 size, or 8.5 by 11 for you Americans. So I'm using those in collage where you don't really see that it's not a crisp, clean print. I did have other ideas for those pictures, but I've got probably about 200 pages I did. Some of them are not perfect, some of them the colour ran out and they're really awesome when I was using up this ink in my printer, because I thought, blow you, I've just put new ink cartridges in and now you don't want to work properly. I will just print and see if I can use up this other ink. So just drying those off. So I did have to peel up the necks to put down the shirts, and I should have thought of that, but I was obviously not thinking this night, not using my brain. So we've got their shirts done, and again I wanted to give them different shirts, and the one on the far left is a colouring book page my daughter printed off the internet that's ended up in my scrap paper. So like their heads, I wanted different dresses, and I love this. The middle one is actually a paper, like the diamondy one in the middle is actually from an Audi paper pad. Okay, this would be the next day. Yes, I remember doing this over 2 days. So my computer's just beeped at me, I don't know why. I think we're still recording. So I decided not to leave the green tape overnight after I'd turned the camera off. I only can film 45 minutes at once on my camera currently. I need to buy a new card for it. And I tore off some of the paint, so you'll just see me fixing that up there. And I believe I turn my light on in a few minutes so it gets a bit brighter, because I forgot to turn my overhead light on. So just fixing up a bit of the border. I love the black border around it. It's really cool. I might do that more often. Doing the dot to dots or the challenges also, I don't think I've ever done like a 1 centimetre border around my page before, but I do like it. So it does challenge you to try new things. So just showing you there an Australian dictionary. I like this particular dictionary because it's got long strips of words, as you can see there. So I'm just tearing all those up to use as their dress. I realised I didn't leave enough room for their dresses because of the way I did the page. A lot of the other layouts I've been seeing from the ladies that have done this same dot to dot challenge have done a smaller face and have a full-length dress, but she's sort of half-length with this particular one. So again, going to use the Mod Podge, trying desperately to use this jar up because I don't like it. I now have used it up. I'm doing this voiceover a couple of weeks later. I have used that jar up. Only 2 to go. But to reward myself for using it up, I have opened one of my good Liquitex jars in the meantime. I know, naughty. No. The only particular reason I don't like this one, it is very glossy and very sticky. And a lot of the times I have to put a clear coat of my homemade clear gesso over the top just to knock the stickiness and the glossiness back off it so it doesn't stick together when you close the book. So I'm not real happy with the dresses, how they turned out, but I couldn't do much because of the bottom of the page and sort of did the best I could. So just adding the strips down. On the lady on the right hand side, I actually, you'll see me in a minute, extend her dress up to cover some of the right hand side of the page. I knew I was going to put the big quote on the right side of the page, so I didn't want to put the girls over there, but I wanted the coherency of part of the girls coming over to that right hand side just to join it in. And I do bring their dresses over the black of the over the black border of the page, which actually makes them look like they're in the foreground and the back is in the background. I think if I'd stopped the dresses at the black, they would have looked a bit more funny. More funny than they are at the moment. Oh my god. You're still with me at this point of the voiceover. You're doing well. Note to self, don't do don't do voiceovers after you've had very little sleep, after 2 40-degree days. Brain doesn't want to work. Gonna grab another mouthful of water. So that's the dot to dot sheet, just checking what I'm up to. So as you can see, it's written out in quite a lot of detail, which explains new techniques and different things, so it's really cool. Okay, what are we up to? 6 strips to make you love the skirt. Okay, 13. So there's 14 steps. May decorate the figure by adding bling on her head, throat, waist, etc. And then it says so now we're up to doing the quote. Now it said you could use a white pen or optional colour on a transparency to do the quote, but I really didn't have that, so I decided to grab out my Dymo label machine. A bit sad now it's out of paper. I went to do another layout the other day and I had to I ran out of paper. I have to buy some more rolls for this. But this little machine I actually got free and it sat there for ages and I never used it, and I pulled it out in the last 12 months after seeing Mike Deacon use his on his art journal pages. My computer's bipping again, I'm not sure why. And dug it out and found it. I actually got it free when I purchased a piece of equipment for my work from Dymo as well. And when I got that, quite a few years ago now, would have been 6 or 7 years ago, I sort of put it aside and go, oh, I don't think I'd ever use it, but now I love it. I have used it so much. So the first thing I did is I went through the magazine or a couple of magazines and cut out words to the quote that I could use, that I could find. So a few of the words I found were nothing, I pieced together, to, where, nothing again, here, for, who, and today. They were the words I managed to get from a magazine because I had to fill in a lot of space. I wanted it to be very mixed, matched, and jumbled and like typography type, like a ransom note really. So I go through and cut out of the magazine. I only went through about 3 magazines. I could have gone through a lot more and found every word, but I decided not to. The hard thing was finding the words in black and white. Yes, I'd find lots of words, but they were in colour and it was like, urgh. So I also did the same thing with the Dymo printer. This one can print very small, medium, large, and extra large. So to make the magazine not look so different, when I did a few of the words, I mixed up the sizes and that. So I did turn it off and do a lot of it off camera, because you have to type in every single word and then change the height and then print it. So it's a bit of a laborious process, hence why this took me about 2.5, 3 hours to do. But it was a labour of love, and I believe I did this when Alexis wasn't around. A weekend she wasn't around, so I could sit there and do it. And I had lots of fun. Excuse my head getting in the way, trying to match things up. So I do need to buy some more rolls for this, as I said, and I believe I can get different colours. That will be cool. I have spied some on that lovely website we do not mention anymore on YouTube. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, leave me a comment or shoot me a message and I'll inform you. So they're quite more affordable on that than buying the Dymo brand ones. I've also got some markers there, and I'm going to do some doodling in a minute when I finish doing this quote. Gee, I left a bit of this in. I must just be doing the last bit of the quote. So I do love my Dymo label machine. Don't use it on every layout, but I have used it on several layouts lately. Might also be handling. Oh my god! Might also be handy when I do some organising. I can label my drawers and what's inside them. Oops! I knocked my scissors down. So just finishing up doing the quote. It is quite a big quote, and I love the effect of it. I don't often put quotes on my layouts. It's probably not something I do very often. A lot of my layouts only have like one word, or they're only picture based, but I do like the big quotes on them. I am trying to expand in 2018. Well, I'm just finishing that up. Trying to expand, find my style, find my groove, I suppose. That's why I haven't done this dot to dot challenge before. It ran all last year, but I was doing Mission Inspiration instead, and I was doing Pick a Stick. Those I'm sort of a bit meh. Done it for 2 years. They don't inspire me as much. But I was reading through this, and it was like this sort of caught my fancy. So yeah, this year I'm trying to extend myself and sort of try and find my style. I'm very eclectic in my style, so I can do things that are heritage, that are bright, that are grungy, that are not grungy, that are florally. I can sit there and punch out 50 million pieces of paper and stick them on an art journal page, with leaves or flowers. I can draw to some extent. I much prefer drawing cartoony type things than realistic, but I'd like to get back into doing some realistic drawing as well. And I also want to get back into using more of my art in my art. There's a few artists that do that. I encourage you to do that, so I want to go and do that as well. So yes, I'm working on a concept at the moment, doing 18 things I want to do or try in my art journaling or my mixed media this year. I also have a few large canvases in my stash that I want to do something with this year to hang around the house. Not sure what I want to do with them yet. Not sure how I want to decorate them, but I do want to do something with them. So just grabbing a black marker. This is a brush marker from, I think this one's from Daiso. A lot of my markers, I was going through them and they were dead. They didn't want to work anymore. So I believe this is a brush marker from Daiso. It tends to go over everything. Because I do have paint here, I do have the Mod Podge, I do have washi tape to go over. So I decided to outline the words just to make them pop a bit from the background. They were seeming to get a bit lost, and I do apologise for my head. Because of my vision problems, sometimes if I'm too far away from the page, I can't actually see the detail I need to and where I need to go. So my head will pop in and out, and I do apologise for that. So just going around, and as you can see there, I'm drawing on the side of the pen because I must have hit a wet spot and killed it. So I found this sheet of rub-ons because we have to decorate our ladies. They need tiaras, they need some jewellery. So this piece of rub-ons is from Cherry Lane, I believe. It's a really old set that come in a class kit. Several years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, I signed up to, and the business is no longer active, a mixed media, when I was first getting into mixed media, a mixed media class, and every 6 weeks it was $50 and they sent you a box of stuff plus instructions to make a page, and then you obviously didn't use all the stuff on the page, you got to keep the stuff, and it was a great way to introduce myself to new products, and I wish another company would do it, because you got $50 worth of stuff in the box, so, and it opened my eyes to products I'd never seen and never do, and I still use some of the stuff today, and some of them have become my favourite products to use. But to look on a website, and in my town there is not a scrapbooker shop, or there's a couple of art shops, but they don't really have the mixed media products. For me to walk into a shop and spend $50 on stuff to try, it's like I don't really do that. I'm a bit more budget friendly, I suppose, and look for the cheaper versions, but I decided with this class kit, and I did it for 2 years, it was exciting to get every 6 weeks a new box of stuff. It was, yeah, I wish another company would do it. It'd be really cool, especially now with so much available. So keep decorating with the rub-ons. I'm actually using, I couldn't be bothered finding a paddle pop stick, and one didn't come in that set, so I think I'm actually using, yes, the ball end of my craft knife. Not a really good thing to put on YouTube, so I'm using my knife upside down because it has a nice ball on the bottom of it. So to use the rub-ons, you either need a paddle pop stick or a spoon or something to rub the sticker on with. So they're like a reverse sticker. And as you can see, I'm cutting out pieces from the rub-on sheet because I tend to find if I lean the wrong way with my fingers or press on the wrong place, I get rub-ons where I don't want rub-ons. It does make storing the sheet a little harder. I usually don't like rub-ons because rub-ons and I have issues. They all don't rub on. They dry out before I get to use them. But these ones are quite good. So I try to use a pack of rub-ons all up at once. So this had a lot of black and white and only a few little bits of green. I didn't want to add the green to this layout, so I actually go and put that in my sewing book style album inspired by Courtney Diaz, and you've seen a lot of that on my channel, which is basically my Use It Up journal. So there was only 3 or 4 pieces of rub-on left, so I just opened up that journal for a certain page and whacked them on a page instead of putting them away in my stash. So I'm getting quite to the end now of finishing up this page. So I decided to trim off the overhanging dress, which I didn't realise I hadn't trimmed before. So here are some close-ups and some still photos of the end. So I love how the 3 ladies turned out. I might even look at turning the left-hand side of this into a postcard to send out or to reuse in my art. I'm not sure yet. Thank you for watching if you've got to the end. Thanks for sticking with me. It's been an interesting voiceover, this one. My normal, typical self. But I love this layout. It's probably going to be one of my top 5 for 2018, unless I make something more equally brilliant. Bye for now.